I'm sitting here trying to think if it's possible for all of us to come back to center or if we're able to get along. When I read the comments in my posts and I read the comments in other people's posts, it just leads me more and more to the conclusion that there is no coming back from this. And that's pretty freaking sad. So in doing that, I want to internalize it a little bit and try and understand, okay, me being a Republican, I know myself well enough to know that it's not a tribalistic tendency to just always choose red over blue. So I'm going to, I just want to share with you a couple of things that were like decision-making factors into why it is that I vote Republican now. And I just can't seem to find common ground with people on the left. Okay, so let's go for it. When COVID first started and Trump shut down travel to China and then travel to Europe, I watched a video where Nancy Pelosi was standing in Chinatown saying that Trump was a xenophobe and a racist for shutting down travel to China and then Europe. She said, "Come on out to Chinatown. Everything is fine. There's no reason to be afraid." Then 2 months later, I watch her on the news claiming that the blood is on Trump's hands for not closing down travel to China and Europe sooner. I watched as conservative speech was shut down when people were just trying to raise the question that it might be possible that coronavirus didn't come from this wet market from people eating pangolins because there just so happens to be a biochemical lab right down the street. Okay, and conservative speech was halted on that. They were called conspiracy theories. You got that? Coronavirus came from a wet market where people are eating pangolins, and nobody wants to talk about the biochemical lab right down the street. So there's that. Then insert George Floyd, where they decide they're only going to release a sliver of the video footage of the entire altercation, which led people to lose their minds. And perhaps there would have been a different sentiment if they would have just released all the video footage so we could have seen the whole altercation, but they chose not to do that. At a time where if I'm trying to bring my grandparents food, I have to do it by spraying down all of the bags and trying to talk to them through a glass window, I'm also watching them cheering on people by the tens of thousands marching nuts to butts, screaming and yelling, most of which are unmasked at a time where we're dealing with a pandemic where the same party that's cheering it on is saying you're not supposed to be in close proximity to each other. I watched conservative speech and conservative doctors that were trying to point out that a drug like ivermectin that's been around for about 70 years, that's readily available and costs pennies on the dollar, is actually horse paste and you shouldn't do it, while they were simultaneously promoting like remdesivir that was causing freaking major damage, okay? Nobody was even allowed to talk about that. They even went as far as to when Joe Rogan was explaining the regimen which he was on, which included ivermectin, they changed the coloring on the video to make him look more sick and then claimed that he was taking horse paste, which it was proven then that he was not. I watch a news person standing in front of a burning building where an entire city is being burnt to the ground and call it a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. I watched left-wing news media outlets, a month and a half off after the altercation with Kyle Rittenhouse, claiming, that he shot 3 unarmed black people. Even after a month into the trial where the video was all exposed, they still said he shot 3 unarmed black people, when in fact, he shot 3 armed white people who clearly were attacking him with firearms. I watched them claim that President Trump was a Russian asset, and I could say, okay, if you have some evidence of that, that would be a horrible thing. What do you got? And after millions and millions of taxpayer dollars and the full weight of every 3-letter agency the U.S. government has in its arsenal, they can come up with 0 and still claim that this man is a Russian asset. So I saw that. In stark contrast to the provable evidence that we had a laptop from Hunter Biden that showed all kinds of crazy things, that was told to us as being Russian disinformation, and it was a laptop hoax, In this thing, he describes his father as being the big guy. They talk about all these different business dealings with their family, not to mention that he's videotaping himself on crack, having sex with what appears to be underage prostitutes, Nobody has a problem with that. It was Russian disinformation. Even though it was proven to be true, they still parrot that. We are told that President Trump, that is a Russian asset, is still a Russian asset after stopping a pipeline that Russia wanted to put into frickin' Europe. And as the new president comes in, he greenlights it, allowing Russia to make the pipeline. Yet somehow Trump is still the Russian asset, so there's that. We are told that a president that can't stay awake during global frickin' summits, is tripping off of stages, has no idea where he's going, can barely speak, has the mental aptitude to not only be president, but continue to be president. So there's that. This same president winds up through weakness getting us involved in World War III on two separate fronts with Russia, frickin' Ukraine, and then we have Gaza and frickin' Israel. So there's that. We have the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan where we're watching it happen in real time. Billions of dollars of American equipment left, where we have video footage of these same people doing parades showing our equipment that they took, but we were told that that mission was a success. Well, simultaneously, when the bodies are returning home from the soldiers that lost their lives, we have a video of President Biden needing to check the time on his watch. So there's that. Conservatives are trying to point out that all of their pages are being demonetized or deplatformed, shadow banned, altogether banned, and everything else. We're told that's a conspiracy theory. Then after you see a video footage of Mark Zuckerberg himself saying that the FBI applied pressure to him to silence conservative speech on Instagram and Facebook, there's that. But that happened on YouTube, on TikTok, on frickin' every other frickin' platform, Twitter. Then you have the frickin' Twitter files, for that matter, showing that they were silencing conservative speech. The thing that the left claims to champion, like we do, free speech, you see it getting cut out in real time, but they still say that that's not happening. All provably true. It is undeniable at this point, yet they still deny that that's even happening. So there's that. Your Rachel Maddow, people on The View, MSNBC, ABC, CNN tells you that if you get the vaccine, you can no longer catch COVID and you can no longer spread it. After you get the vaccine and you catch it and you spread it, they say, well, you can still catch it, you can still spread it. But if you get that and a booster, then you can still catch it, you can still spread it, but at least you won't get that sick. After you get that sick, then they say, well, if you got that booster and the shot and another booster, you can still catch it, you can still spread it, you might still get sick, but at least you won't go to the hospital. When you wind up in the hospital, then all of a sudden they say, well, because you get this, if you get one more booster, you can still catch it, you can still spread it, you can still get sick, you can still end up in the hospital, but at least you won't die. And as people are still dying, they're sitting there saying, well, you know what? As long as you get this shot plus all of the other boosters, you can still catch it, you can still spread it, you can still get sick from it, you can still wind up in the hospital from it. You might wind up dying from it, but at least you're not an asshole who just didn't take it like these other right-wing lunatics. Everyone on the left loved RFK. He's treated so poorly in the Democratic Party, he runs as an independent, okay? After Joe Biden bumbles the debate with frickin' Trump, he even offers to come back to run as a Democrat in a primary, which the Democratic Party doesn't allow to happen. They pull a coup and insert Kamala Harris with no frickin' primary, and everybody's fine with it. And to put a cherry on top of that shit Sunday, when he winds up going in with the Trump administration, now he's executing on the very things he wanted to do as if he was president, and now you hate him for it. The things that you wanted him to do when you liked him as a person that could be president, he is now doing, and you hate him for it. The left claimed that Elon Musk just a year and a half ago was Tony Stark. People cheered him to the high heavens as the person that's really facilitating the most growth in the sector of an all-electric future. Now all of a sudden you hate him. And you hate him to the point where you're burning the very cars that you wanted most. And on top of that, the cars that you're burning that are just citizens who own them, half of them are Democrats that bought it too, and you burn them anyways. You are firebombing freaking Tesla stations, charger stations, Teslas themselves. There's people shooting guns into Tesla buildings, and this is the way that you do it. When I watch the right protest something like Bud Light, they just didn't buy it anymore. It's in stark contrast to the left, which will set things on fire and fucking hurt people if they don't like something. So there's that. I watch and share video footage of Nancy Pelosi herself talking about the unfair trade agreements that we have with China from back in 1996, and the Democrats cheered for it, but now all of a sudden they're mad when we're trying to do something about it. I post videos of President Obama, Bill Clinton doing all the things that Doge is doing, trying to stop waste, fraud, and abuse, killing tons of government jobs during their presidency because they had to stop waste, fraud, and abuse. And the left cheered for it. Now, all of a sudden, under this administration, you don't like it, right? You're mad about it. You're protesting it in the freaking streets. There is video footage of the people that you love. Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton talked about a whole plethora of people that either wanted to do or did do the very thing that you cheered for then and now for some reason hate. So there's that. Our borders are blown wide open, and then I watch people sending vans of these people to rich, mostly Democrat states like Martha's Vineyard, and these people, not even in 24 hours, turn them around, put them back on the bus, and ship them out while yelling, "Ti amo, we love you," and talking about what an eye-opening experience this was, right? The very same people that want all of them in don't want them to be in their house. They don't want them to be in their neighborhood. So there's that. And there's more, but I don't have enough time. So how do we ever come back from this? How do we meet in the middle?